Nothing's too formal with to get this lovely lady who tells us that the meeting's being recorded. So nothing too formal and fancy, but I want to just, for those of you that are coming on right this minute with us. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm going to give Facebook a minute or two just to let everybody know that we're here and that we're live with another great event. Rachel, do you have a copy of the book with you?
I do.
Yay.
I have both of them.
There
I know
we
we're only
go.
looking at one, but
there we go. This is what we will be talking about in just a few short minutes, Mercury in retrograde. And as we were talking about in the green room, today, about an hour ago, was the final, it finally has moved on. So all of our tech issues and everything, we should not be having to deal with that anymore.
You know, it doesn't really go backwards either. Okay. A lot of people think it really does go backwards, but it's all an illusion. And so we've kind of passed our little orbit there.
Past the orbit. I can't wait. So this is going to be such a fun conversation. I cannot wait. So for those of you that may not be joining us from the San Diego area and don't know who Warwick's is, I'll give you a little bit of just a little snippet of who we are. We are located in La Jolla, San Diego, California. So we are down at the little tip of California down here. Warwick's, my little sign there says 1896. We are celebrating our 125th anniversary this year. So had a long history with and been in San Diego since the 30s. So we are a little bit of a San Diego institution for not only wonderful bookstore, but gifts and jewelry and all kinds of fun stuff. So for tonight's or today's event, I will be putting in Rachel's books into the comment section of Facebook. So you can easily click on those and you can choose to have them shipped to you, or if you are so inclined and you're in the San Diego area, we would love for you to come by the store. Lots of great things to look at, lots of great books to, other books to buy as well. So when you're picking up Rachel's, you can pick something else up maybe. So, and for today's event, Rachel and Amanda are going to talk for about 35-ish minutes. And if you have any questions for Rachel, go ahead and put those in the comment section. We'll get to as many as we can. We're not going to bring those in live. I'll bring those into the conversation after they're done talking. So like I said, we'll get to as many as we can, but don't be shy and go ahead and put those questions into the comment section. And Amanda, if you think about it, I'll be talking to people in the chat room, but if you think about it, remember to remind people to ask questions when you're kind of wrapping up. That might prompt somebody with some questions or stuff. So I think I've given Facebook enough time to notify everyone that we're there. So let me introduce these two wonderful ladies and we will move on. So Rachel Stuart-Haas is a professional artist and astrologer who currently lives in Louisiana. She earned her BFA in design and illustration from the Kansas City Art Institute in Kansas City, Missouri. Since then, Rachel has focused her time and energy on producing one-of-a-kind paintings that portray her intuition towards the obvious and the ethereal. She has been fascinated with astrology since she first laid eyes on Linda Godsman's love signs in the 8th grade. And after years of working with top astrologers, Rachel launched her own practice with clients that span the globe. Rachel lives with her husband, David, their children, Ivy and Liam, and her devoted basset hound, Louie. Will Louie be making an appearance tonight?
He's sleeping. That's mostly what he does these days.
I love that. She's here to talk to us today about Mercury in retrograde and other ways the stars can teach you to live your truth, find your power, and hear the call of the universe. Conducting today's interview is our very own Amanda Qassar. Amanda, you know what? I don't think I've ever said your last name, and please tell me how to say it. Qassar?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, how do you say it?
Well, that's great. It's translated. That's how immigration translated Arabic. So it's truly properly it'd be something like Qassar, but
oh, I couldn't do that with my
trying to make people do that is just cruel. So
yeah, I couldn't do that with my tongue.
Qassar is great.
Qassar, thank you for bearing with me on that. So Amanda, marketing coordinator at Warwick's, has been bookselling and bookshop haunting for over 2 decades. Occult titles have emerged as a special area of interest. An astrology buff since childhood, Amanda previously worked at Controversial Bookstore as a member of the San Diego Astrological Society and has been blaming Mercury retrograde for slip-ups at work and in life for many moons. That's how we came upon this book and this wonderful author. So you two have a great conversation and we'll see you in about a half hour.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining us. I am very excited. On one hand, I want to pepper you, as I told you in the green room, with super obscure, nerdy points of astrological knowledge questions. But the thing about this beautiful book, Mercury in Retrograde,
Yes.
is that it's a wonderful entry point for people who may be astro curious, or perhaps look at their daily horoscope, and your tone of voice is so easy and conversational, and it's not ditzy like you see in a lot of like gossip mags or columns. So I wanted to make sure my questions were tailored toward folks who may be starting on their astrological journey, and
Got to start somewhere.
yeah, or maybe people who are very logically, scientifically minded, who want to continue being intrigued but are dubious perhaps about the whole
Right.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of people are dubious because sun sign astrology, which is just like looking at your basic sun sign in the magazine, seems a little bit like BS, because how can that really apply to this many, you know, thousands and thousands of people that span the globe? It's impossible. It doesn't work. So the reason I wanted to do this book was to really explain, like, it's way more than just your sun being in Leo or your sun being in Taurus. It's a lot about where all the planets are in the specific time that you were born in the sky, and how that relates to everything, and what's going on in the sky, and how that relates to you. And it's, as you know, because you are a lover of astrology, it's so vast and it's so complicated. And I think we can all dive too far into it, too fast, too soon, with asteroids and all kinds of stuff, even though I do put asteroids in here. And so I wanted to simplify everything dramatically, and I tried to do that.
You did a fantastic job. So this book, it's tiny but mighty, and it's beautiful if you look at the cover. And the spine actually is fantastic too. As a book person, I totally nerded out on this. But it's not a book, and you point this out, it's not a book to glance at and throw on your shelf and not touch anymore.
Right.
You mean it as a tool. You call it a tool, like a hammer or a screwdriver. And it's not a journal per se, but you do have this nice setup in the beginning where you prompt people to find their chart online if you know the time you were born and fill this in.
Yes.
Thankfully, you go through it and there aren't any blank lines or prompts, which would make me run away screaming whenever I see that in a book.
Yeah.
But it is something you intend for people to use. And to look back on and dog ear and probably mark up if you're that kind of book person.
Yes.
So this is just a great entry point. So when it comes to this, do you recommend any certain free resources online that you like specifically?
I think astro.com is the most common one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So I think that is the one I would recommend more than anything. Yeah.
So for people who may be dubious, I think a lot of people who are down on astrology, maybe they object to the idea that we're stamped at birth. You know, it's some kind of hippie predestination.
Nature versus nurture, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think one of the beautiful things you say really early on in the book is we tend to forget that astrology is actually all about free will.
Mhm.
Can you talk about that a little more?
So yeah, I think that when we look at our chart, for example, your chart may say, you're a great communicator, you're a great writer, you're a great speaker, all of these things. But you don't have to do any of that if you don't want to do it. You can fight against things if you want, just like we all can. We all can do things that we know are great for us, that we know are not great for us, but we make decisions based on things here and there. However, though, I think it's really important when it comes to transits more than anything to know that there's ways to work around these things. So as we're talking, by the way, for those who do not know, a transit is simply a planetary movement of what's going on in the sky and how it's affecting your chart right now. So for example, for all those Aquarians out there, specifically Aquarians born, let's see, let me get my ephemeris out and see when those, because you guys are getting Saturn hammering you down all right now. And we have, so right about 11 degrees. So let's see. All those Aquarians who are born around the very end of January, very beginning of February, are going through a really hard time right now. They're getting a Saturn transit. It's a tough one. They feel like life is a burden. It's the planet is Saturn. It's a taskmaster. It makes you work really hard. And you can do these two different ways. You can say like, oh, I'm just depressed and I'm falling down. It's so hard. Or you can really say, okay, how can I make this transit really amazing? And how can I work with these energies? These are all energies that are just wanting to be used. And so when we decide, okay, this is not the time in my life to be the party person. This is not the time in my life to go around and schmooze people at cocktail parties and things like that. I need to get my nose to the grindstone, clean the toilet with the toothbrush, do my taxes, and you will have a much easier time knowing that it's only for this amount of time, and then we can move on to other things. So just knowing where everything is and working with the flow, it's just so much easier than trying to fit like a round peg in a square hole, instead of fighting stuff. And I think that's where astrology is so helpful to me.
Yeah. Well, I should start with the obvious. When you made this book, so for those who know, Mercury in retrograde, it's sort of a notorious astrological phenomenon. It's, besides the full moon and the craziness that people associate with it, it's probably the most notorious thing in astrology.
I agree.
So could you explain just in a nutshell for people, what is Mercury in retrograde? Also, why did you decide to name this beautiful primer after it? And how was your recent Mercury retrograde?
Well, first of all, my recent Mercury retrograde stopped right on my very own Mercury. So I'm getting Mercury just sitting on Mercury. And Mercury just went forward. So that's why we might be going a lot of, what's that word again? That's very Mercury retrograde. What am I trying to say? It's like we stopped and now we're changing gears again. But all of the planets, with the exception of the sun and the moon, go into a retrograde phase. And it appears on Earth as if the planet is moving backwards. But really what's happening is as the planets go through their orbit, there comes a time, and for Mercury, it's 3 times a year. It's the most common one, which is why we know about it all the time. And so basically it's when the sun and the Earth, the Earth and Mercury get really, really close together. It's how it was described to me. It's, that feeling when you're sitting in traffic and the cars start going forward, and for a minute you feel like you're moving backwards. That feeling? That's kind of the way Mercury retrograde works. So what it's actually doing is it means Mercury is so close to the Earth that we are feeling the energy of Mercury in a huge way. And so Mercury is about, and so all the planets do this, and like Venus retrograde, Venus love, Mars retrograde. When the planets go backwards, it's really a time that the cosmos are saying, whoa, whoa, let's not plow ahead. Let's really, in the case of Mercury, let's really think, because Mercury is a communication. It's how our brain works. It's how we talk, we sing, all of it. And so the universe is saying, let's stop and really make sure we've got our thinking straight. So for people who try and just plow through things, who move too quickly, we're constantly, tripping over ourselves, not catching a lot of stuff, because the universe is trying to tell us, whoa, 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 slow down. So when and I use Mercury retrograde because it's such a common thing that people ask me about a lot. Is it Mercury retrograde? I get that question all the time. No, 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 so I thought it was a very easy kind of pickup kind of deal. But like when Venus goes retrograde, and she will be going retrograde in December and January of this year in Capricorn, for all you Capricorns, she's the planet of love. And so when she gets really close to the earth and does her backwards thing, that's not a time to move forward in romances, new romances, beauty stuff. It's a time to sit and really think about things. So, or feel, I should say, things.
Huh. And it's sort of known for maybe old flames showing back up.
Oh yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beware.
There have been many of those. Always a mistake. Don't do it. Don't ever go back with the ex during Venus retrograde. Never. Ever, ever. Yeah. And usually, Mercury has a really bad reputation of, things getting lost in the mail, travel plans go awry. You didn't mean to say that. You actually hit send. Oh my gosh, there's all those things. But I think it really is about taking that breath and pausing and, okay, do I really want to write this? Do I really want to say this? Do I really need to move this quickly? And that, utilizing that has helped me personally with so many retrograde scenarios, or I try. There's still issues. And I really, and I talk about this a lot, but I really feel like the void moon screws up more things than a Mercury retrograde does. So that's my thinking.
Yeah. And would you talk about that for a minute? I know you have a beautiful void. It's the same thing as void, of course, right?
It's a void. Yeah. So basically, the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. And when it changes from one sign to the next, when it makes its very last aspect to a planet in the sky, it then goes into a void phase before it moves into the next sign. So it's almost like when the moon isn't making any aspects to any other planets, it's not speaking to any other planets. And the moon is our emotions, our feelings, our gut instincts, all of that. So when it's not talking to anything else, it's not making a whole lot of rational decisions. Our emotions aren't. So you have a lot of stuff in your closet with tags on it. Guaranteed you bought that when the moon was void, because you were, all that kind of stuff. And plans get made during a void moon. Nothing comes of it. All kinds of things happen, but they are highly, highly creative periods. And they're wonderful for art, for playing around, for just like have a party during a void moon. You don't know where it's going to go. Go on a vacation during a void moon to lock that moon in. It's a wild vacation. It's one of those, we don't know where the wind will take us. It can be used in a really creative way. But if you're wanting something with a specific outcome, do not do it during a void moon. And I'm a rebel astrologer. I test all of this out. I've bought things during Venus retrograde. I bought a house during a Mercury retrograde.
Woo!
I do all these crazy things and test, and I do a lot of things during void moons, and the void moon, woo, it's a biggie, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you have a beautiful calendar on your website that has all the void moon information if anyone's curious to look at it. Along the so wait, you bought a house during Mercury retrograde. How did that go? Was
it actually went well. It was one of those just crazy things. And they said, okay, well, we have to close on the house this date. And I said, no, and I think like Mercury went forward and we closed 2 hours later. So
okay.
The house out during Mercury retrograde, but I refused to really sign it. And that, that didn't go over so well with a lot of, but I made everyone wait.
Mercury retrograde does end today, but people talk a lot about the shadow periods, either a few days to a week before or after the retrograde and then direct motion. Do you, some people even say it's worse than the actual retrograde time. Do you?
No, because I think we would be in a shadow phase most of the year if we. And totally. I think life's too hard. Let's not make ourselves insane here. I do think, things do kind of have that weird, like forward, back and forth motion right when it goes forward. Like we kind of feel it a little. I felt it today, for sure. Like you're getting your gears back up. So things do get kind of slower to start, but maybe, I'm really looking, or I'm telling a lot of my clients, Mercury's going forward today at 6 p.m. Eastern. And on Thursday, there's a big, beautiful full moon in Capricorn. Like, let's say, start things then. That's when we kind of like, okay, here we go, back on track, until it gets to the next retrograde. So
you have a lovely section right at the end of the book about creating your own rituals, like your own meaningful rituals that are, loosely tailored on associations with the different signs or the houses.
Yes,
which is super cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, because a lot of books like this are way prescriptive, and people think about rituals or witchcraft that they have to have these very specific steps or else it's not going to work.
Right.
So yeah, I just really enjoy that you kind of, you offer loose guidance, but also you kind of put the ball in a person's court when it comes to.
Well, it should be. Yeah, I think working, astrology is a little bit different, but working with that kind of energy is so personal to each and every one of us. So utilizing like I've got my red glasses on for fiery Leo confidence. And, you've got your beautiful purple or blue. It's gorgeous. Just, we all bring in colors and we all bring in certain things, to help us out here and there. And just being very conscious of that, being very aware of that, it starts bringing in that kind of ritual into your daily life, which just makes it really special more than anything. And it is, I think it's very personal to each one of us, but I love using the idea of your own moon sign as, how to really create that self-nurturing ritual. I think that is something that is great. What is your moon sign again? I think you told me, but maybe, did you?
Not exactly. I'm a Scorpio moon.
Oh, you're Scorpio moon. Yeah. Oh, I love Scorpio moons.
Watch out.
Well, I'm opposite. I'm a Taurus moon. So we're back and forth off each other. So we have the same goals. We just come at it different ways. So we're a little hedonistic, you and I.
my Chiron is in Taurus, and it's kind of confounding. So Chiron is an asteroid, and there's a really nice section in here about the asteroids that everything in here is so approachable. I just have to keep commending you on that because I mean, I've been reading books on these subjects for a long time, and they're so
dull, right?
they're
Right?
dull, they're convoluted, they're almost purposefully Byzantine, and I just really appreciate that. This is great, and I really want to read your other one too. I wanted to ask you about the book you put out only a few months before this one.
Yes.
Yeah, The House Your Stars Built.
House Your Stars Built. That one really goes through gives you a really in-depth look at the houses. I use a lot of celebrity charts that we kind of go through just to give kind of examples, and then we talk a lot more about the ascendant and career and love and all kinds of stuff. So I really looked at them as to kind of just be almost together, to really be not one or two, but just, they feed off of each other.
Nice.
So Mercury in retrograde almost goes a little more in depth with, every planet in each specific house, which was my favorite part of writing the book. I really enjoyed that part the most. So.
Yeah. And everyone, don't be shy out there. If you have any questions for Rachel, go ahead and put them in the Facebook comments and we'll bring them in. Julie will pop back in with them. Yeah, your discussion of the planets and the houses is great. And it's probably an old idea, but it reminds me of, there was another book called Planets in Play, and I can't remember the author, but it discusses the planets, kind of thinking about them as personalities, much
actors on a stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The stage is your personal chart and your houses, and so I think that's a really approachable way instead of trying to navigate. There's so much information, and
it gets overwhelming. I mean, I think for newbie baby astrologers, I always say, pull up a chart and pull up people you're interested in, your mom, your dad, your sister, brother, your boyfriend, girlfriend, all your friends, and, start learning the basics. I almost say throw out all the asteroids in the beginning, because it just gets like, what am I even looking at here? And the quick and dirty way I learned to read a chart really fast was you look at the sun first. Where is that sun? Is the sun in the first house? Do you need to be on stage a lot? Is the sun in the 10th house? Do you need to have that career? Or are you a homebody with the sun in the 4th? That is what you are here to do. That's what you're here. Some people, it's really easy. Sun in the 7th, you need a relationship. Sun in the 2nd, you need money. Real easy. It's a real, I need security, I need money. And then you look at the moon, and that's what you need. That what's really gets, and I see so many men who don't do their moon at all. And I read for so many women who only do their moon. And, the moon looks like a Pac-Man going around. And if you do your moon too much, that's when, especially when we women, we start getting bigger and bigger because we're not doing our sun. And it's interesting, noting that sun and the moon and what you're here to do and what you need. And then I look at that ascendant, which I also think the midheaven is equally as important. I look at that ascendant and I find the ruler of the ascendant. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have an Aries ascendant, then Mars would be the ruler of Aries because Mars is associated with Aries. Let's say you have a Gemini ascendant, then Mercury would be your chart ruler because Mercury is associated with Gemini, and you see where that is. And that is where you shine. So you have what you're here to do, what you need, and where you shine. And then start simply, really simply, because otherwise, it's learning a foreign language, really. That's what it is.
Huh. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Yeah,
But
it's
it's so fun to figure out your people, it's like you're a little detective with it, which appeals to all your Scorpio.
yeah, I was about to say. She's got my number. She amazing. She looked at me before we even started the event and totally had my number. So I wanted to ask about, oh, hi, Julie.
Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. This is kind of a messy one, a little bit. So I recently had to schedule a medical procedure. Mm-hmm. And I started looking into the deep, deep rabbit hole of medical astrology and timing. And by the end of going through all these checklists of when not to do certain things, I probably might have had maybe 3 or 4 days in the next 3 months where I could have done this thing. So how do you square, so to speak?
Yeah. So I will say, first of all, I think there's a lot of bad, scary astrology out there that is hogwash, and I think a lot of it is ancient, old astrology.
Yeah.
Too, that when there was really plagues and all kinds of stuff, when there was, oh wait, aren't we doing that now, huh? But no, I mean, I think that really, like, when there's never a perfect anything, there's no perfect love life, there's no perfect anything. It doesn't exist. But what you can do for medical things, and if you can't plan it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. But we want to do, definitely avoid retrograde stuff. They say, you want to get close to a new moon because we bleed much more during a full moon. So getting close to a new moon is a big, great thing to do. You want to look at your own transits, and some, if this is a serious one, you may need an astrologer to do this, because Mars is cutting, we don't want to do anything during a Mars retrograde. We always want, Mercury and Mars in good aspects and good angles, because the other thing I do is I go sneaky and I find the surgeon's chart. And then I compare the surgeon's chart with your chart, and y'all don't have to do that. I do it all for you. And we find the surgeon's chart, because I will not advise, going with somebody whose chart is attacking your chart. No.
Oh my God.
So, you have to find these things. And for Venus retrograde coming up December 19th through January 29th, no cosmetic anything. That show Botched?
Don't end up on the show.
They'll be blowing up then.
It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. And Mars retrograde, which will be, I think, at the end of 2022. I may be wrong about that, but I think so. That's one you don't want to schedule a surgery on. But knowing who's going to do the surgery is pretty big. But if you've got some good Mars things and good Mercury thing going on, and
Yeah, that was kind of another question I had, but I want to go to.
Oh no, go ahead. What was the other one?
Well, no, just how do you know when to call in the cavalry when it comes to calling a professional astrologer? Like, and are there do you ever, in all your experience, like, is there ever anything in a chart where we don't want to ever say something's bad in a chart, but
right,
are there any certain recurring aspects you see that are dangerous or particularly troublesome, or?
Oh, well, I mean, you can see when things are like, oh shit, here this comes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can. And that's what an astrologer will help you. Well, let's not climb any ladders right now. Let's do, all this kind of stuff. I mean, astrologers were looking at January of 2020 for years and years. because they knew that something majorly catastrophic would happen. We didn't know what, or I don't know anybody who did, but we knew that in 2020, it was Saturn conjoining Pluto. And the last time Saturn and Pluto were squared off, but when they opposed each other, it was September of 2001. 9/11. And so they joined forces, and we knew there was going to be something. So, I was looking at clients who had this going on their moon or their sun. And, you have to, here this comes, and we have to talk about that. This is what this means. And it's interesting too, because, Saturn gets a really bad rap for good reason, but Saturn can be great. I mean, it can be a great outcome for a lot of stuff because it kicks your ass and it makes you grow up and it makes you work. And I mean, the confidence someone gets from that. And Jupiter, which has, I talked to an astrologer today who said, boy, who's the PR team on Jupiter? They really got,
Yeah.
he's got a great,
he's the party planet.
It's really a planet of excess. And so, you get somebody with an addiction problem and they've got a great Jupiter coming around. Well, that's not so great for that person. So it becomes a thing where you really have to, and the way I work with clients is you learn, you can't really just read a chart and mail it off to someone. You have to really, and this becomes the nature versus nurture free will thing. And looking at twins charts, you've got perfect example right there of you've got two different people. How come my twins are so unbelievably different yet they have the same chart? Oh, okay, well, I'll tell you why. So we have to go into that, and you learn about the person. And what I love so much about astrology is it's deeply psychological. It's very therapeutic. You learn a lot about yourselves. You learn a lot about your family, your upbringing, your past, and how to move on and move on that will make life easy for you and make you a happier, better person.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to get to the question, Amanda, that came in from Facebook. Karen wants to know, if you don't know what time you were born, is the book still helpful?
Yes. There is, and I think we did talk a little bit in that book on astro.com. If you don't know the time, you can hit sunrise chart, and sunrise chart will put the sun right on the ascendant, and it's still very good. It's not accurate, but if you go to an astrologer, they can do what's called rectifying a chart. And basically what I would do is I would talk to you and kind of start, what happened this year? Did anything, or tell me some major life events. And if I'm not seeing it in the chart, then I'll know, oh, maybe we should put Pluto right there on the midheaven, or that's when Uranus was transiting your marriage house. That's when you got the divorce, and you can kind of figure things out. And
so you can kind of narrow into somebody's birth time.
I do it with a lot of clients because, believe it or not, I have a lot of clients people who are military families. You would think military would be marked. They don't have it on there. And come on. So we have to do a lot of that.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So so your clients are coming, how often do they come to you? How often are you seeing people?
It depends. Some come once a week. Some come 3 times, a year. Some come once every year. Some come once a month. Mostly once every 3 months.
Okay.
They'll kind of come in for a check-in, but it depends. Most astrologers don't get people who are all having a great time. Most people go to an astrologer because there's some trauma happening or there's something going on. So usually I'll read for someone really intensely until that transit moves on. Okay. And then, they're doing good when you don't hear from them. So.
Right. So the book does the book complement? Now, Amanda, you have more knowledge on it because you read it, and I'm coming from somebody that's more like a customer that hasn't read it. So the question is more of, as somebody that's just interested in this, what do you expect people to get out of the book? As far as like, either one of you can answer that.
Oh, I thought you were asking Amanda.
Yeah, no, I was just, Amanda, in her questions though, was she came from a point of knowing what the book was. So Rachel, what is it for, like you said, is it, and you said it's very accessible, but what is what do you expect people to be able to
Well,
get out?
I think one of the things that I was thinking about is I haven't seen an astrology book, and I mean, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I haven't seen an astrology book in a long time that really broke things down the way that this book does. And the ones that I love are really like from the 40s, you know, and some of them are, and some of the, you know, the ones I have are even so old they don't even have Pluto in it because they didn't know anything about Pluto then. Which is still a planet. And so I wanted to kind of break it down in a way that wasn't scary. You know, I get so many people, oh, I found out Saturn's in my money house. I'm destined to be, you know, or will I never get married? This is empty. What's going on? And so I wanted to just answer a lot of questions that I hear often. And I think that with the asteroids in here, and the planets broken down the way that they are, and with the aspects, I think even an advanced person could find some use for it, because really going back to the basics always, you know, really solidifying those foundations always makes you better with anything you do. So that's kind of, you know, every time I got stuck on a chart, I would go back to books that are really basic, and they would kind of help me figure it out, more than something that's way too esoteric, that's way too out there, that's way too, I'm going, wait, what is this, the mythology of what? So yeah.
Okay, love that. So Beth has a question.
Okay.
So if your birth date is a scheduled date, like a C-section, do you still only consider birth date and time?
You, doesn't matter when someone, yes, when you came out, or when, you know, that wedding date happened, because there's astrology charts for everything. But when it comes to birth, it doesn't matter. You know, my mom always said, oh, you were supposed to be born on this day. Says who? Right. Says the doctor? No offense, doctors. But it's when you came out. Both of my children were C-sections. The first one was an emergency C-section, and the second one I was too scared to do a VBAC, so I did another one, and I got to pick what time she was born, which, I mean, thought, you know, talk about trying to pick a medical thing going, I was going crazy. Gosh. Crazy. And by the way, I picked a Scorpio rising. Which,
so another question though is, okay, so let's go back to the title of the book, Mercury retrograde. And I am a total novice on this whole subject. If it wasn't for Amanda, I probably wouldn't even know what it was. And then it's like, now, how often does it happen?
Three times a year.
3 times a year?
The next one is September 27th.
Mark your calendar, Julie.
I know.
Yeah. Mark it. September 27th to October 18th. It's in Libra for all you Libras out there. You know, just to further you guys into even more indecisiveness, you know, we're having it then. And so, yeah. And then the Venus retrograde is December 19th through January 29th. But Mercury retrograde, you know, some of the things I like to find, I really enjoy like going on vacation during Mercury retrogrades, taking a break. So if you go through the houses, and like if you have Mercury retrograde going through your career house, take some time off work if you can. You know, if you have it going through the marriage house, go somewhere in a cabin by yourself.
Get away from vacation, exactly. To go have some me time.
Yeah. So wherever they go through, it's interesting to see where you need to rethink that part of your life, but also where you need a mental break, because that's kind of what Mercury retrograde is as well.
Interesting. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. We could go on and on and on. Amanda, do you have one final question that you're burning to ask?
I do.
Good. Okay.
I mean, I have tons, but a question we get a lot, Rachel, from people to authors is, what's your writing practice? But what I kind of like, what are your rituals, your daily routine when it comes to production of your writing? But for you, I'm curious just about what your personal astrological practice is. Like, what do you do every day to kind of check in?
Well, I meditate. I do that. I have to go quiet. It's gotten, when I first started doing it, when I would look at a chart, I would spend a long time on it. And it's gotten to where it's easier to grab things. And I've had teachers and mentors who tell me you need to study this chart an hour before a reading. And I've done that many times. And then I've had other teachers that say, no, fly by the seat of your pants, go on it on intuition. And I've found that I kind of do a mix of both, and where I really try and sit with it and see kind of the pattern that comes out for me. I've started to get really into the elements of, like, is this a balance chart? Is it missing this element? That's something I've really gotten into. And it's almost like I first kind of intuitively try and feel it out. And then I switch it to, sorry, I left that on. I switch it to more right brain thinking, or wait, I get them confused. Mercury, what is it? Left brain which is the creative side?
Right. Your right brain.
I think I've been saying that wrong for years.
Yeah,
all right. Oh, well. Well, whatever. And then I switch it kind of back and forth. But it does. I think you have to sit with it. It's a lot to look at. It really is.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Rachel, for those that are watching this either on Facebook or this will be on our YouTube channel later, is there someplace that you want to direct people, either a website if they want to know more about you, how to be in touch with you? Where should we direct everyone?
So Stuart-Haas.com, all one word, no hyphen, is my website. Okay. I believe I have a hyphen. And then I'm on Instagram a lot. It's just at @rstuart-Haas, one word. And I post little things on that. I'm bad at Facebook.
But Facebook's taken a whole different thing though, I think, for people. It's like they don't come to it. I think Instagram is the place where people really connect, where Facebook is more informational, it seems like these days, with like things like this. And there's still things to do out there on Facebook. And for those of you, Amanda, they can find you every week doing our weekly newsletter, but you actually do some other stuff outside of work that's kind of fun. Do you want to tell people what your handles are?
Nah.
Nah, you don't want anybody following you.
That Scorpio doesn't want any of their stuff.
You don't want any of the attention.
No way. No way.
It's a problem, Rachel. My North Node is Leo, and I can't make it happen. No,
you do some stand up like.
I've been involved with a really cool organization called So Say We All.
There you go.
Yeah, they're actually just starting up again with live storytelling shows. But yeah, I've definitely been in some plague time hibernation for a while.
Yeah.
So.
But So Say We All, so you can plug that for them then, and they can find you there sometimes.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah,
and they have a show this Thursday at the Whistle Stop if anyone's feeling brave and needs to see some live storytelling.
Love it. Well, this was really a fun conversation. I had a blast listening, and it's fascinating because for somebody who's not in it, I'm going to text my mom and go, what time was I really born? Because I think it was noon, but maybe I'm wrong.
Read the book.
Yep. Yeah. And I put the other book in there too.
Get the other book too.
Yep, I put that in there as well.
Get them both. Yes.
Yes, they're lovely.
Thank you very much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
This was really fun. So we're going to go off of Facebook, and I'm going to turn off the recording. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.